I knew something was wrong the second I saw the cameras. It was 6:15 in the morning. I was walking back from the barn with a coffee mug in one hand and a halter in the other, still wearing boots crusted with last night's mud. The air smelled like hay, manure, and quiet, exactly how I like it. But then I looked up, and there they were. 3 brand new surveillance cameras mounted on gleaming aluminum poles pointed straight at my pasture, and right below one of them, a bright blue HOA sign. Future site, Silver Creek Park, community use only, trespassers will be prosecuted. They planted the damn thing right next to the training ring, on my land. I stood there for a second, just blinking. I actually checked my coffee to make sure no one slipped something into it while I was mucking stalls. But no, I was stone cold sober, and apparently so were the lunatics who thought this was normal. A white pickup truck idled nearby, engine humming like it had somewhere better to be. Some guy in a reflective vest was hammering another pole into the ground like he was building a playground in a war zone. I asked him what he thought he was doing. He shrugged and said, "Ask Sharon. I just follow orders." Of course, Sharon White, HOA president, walking haircut, and local dictator in yoga pants. I didn't know what she was planning, but I could already smell the BS from 50 feet away, and it smelled like lavender essential oil and legal threats. I walked back to the barn and quietly put my halter down. My coffee was still hot, but my blood sure as hell wasn't. Because that spot, that exact spot where they posted the sign, was where Daisy, my oldest mare, liked to roll in the dust every morning. She was the first horse I ever bought for this ranch, and she still acted like she owned the place. Spoiler alert, she kinda did. She'd raised foals there, she'd won ribbons there. That patch of dirt? Sacred. And now Sharon's HOA was staking a claim on it like they were manifest destining their way into my livelihood. Let me back up. I'm not the kind of guy who starts drama. I'm the kind who ends it quietly with paperwork and a cold stare. 12 years ago, I bought this patch of land when it was nothing but overgrown scrub and busted fence posts. People thought I was out of my mind. Who the hell raises horses in a commuter suburb? Good question. But see, I didn't care about their HOA potlucks or their Pinterest perfect lawns. I just wanted space to work, breathe, and watch animals live like they were meant to. I built every stall in that barn with my own hands, dug the drainage myself, even welded my own gates because the prefab crap at Home Depot kept falling apart in the frost. And over time, I carved out something real. My herd grew, so did my client list. I started training quarter horses for show, and I made a name for myself. Not loud, not flashy, just steady, like a good gelding. The neighbors mostly left me alone, which was fine by me. I wasn't part of the HOA, and I had the original deed to prove it. My property line was older than half their homes, but lately the neighborhood had been changing. More Teslas, more manicured poodles and baby strollers, and a hell of a lot more people asking if I could move the horses away from the fence because the kids are scared of their noises. Yeah, the noises. God forbid a child hear a real animal breathe. Anyway, about 6 months ago, Sharon got elected HOA president. I barely noticed at first. Just another suburban volunteer with a superiority complex, but she had plans. Beautification initiatives, she called them, community improvement. Translation: let's pretend this is Napa and squeeze out anything that doesn't fit the aesthetic. I figured I was safe. I wasn't part of the HOA and my land was zoned agricultural. I even framed the letter from the county that confirmed it, hung it right over my feed bins for laughs. But then Sharon started circling. First it was neighborly suggestions, then courtesy notices. And now, cameras, fences, a sign claiming my pasture. She made a mistake, though. She picked the one patch of dirt I cared about more than anything, and she tried to take it from me. That was the moment I stopped ignoring her. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just about fences or bylaws. This was war. It actually started small. They always do, don't they? Bullies never come at you with the bat right away. First, they nudge you. See how much you'll take. In my case, it began with a letter. A plain, cream-colored envelope taped to my mailbox with HOA letterhead and that fake smile logo. A little tree, 2 houses, and a sun that looked like it was judging you. Inside was a friendly notice from the Silver Creek HOA Compliance Committee. Friendly like a rattlesnake. Subject: unauthorized structure on visual perimeter. Dear resident, it has come to our attention that your perimeter fencing does not conform to Silver Creek HOA visual standards, Section 8.2, fence height and appearance. Kindly arrange for immediate compliance by replacing it with approved white vinyl panels, not to exceed 4 feet in height and no more than 1.5 inches in thickness. Thank you for your cooperation in keeping our community beautiful. Warm regards, Sharon White. President, Silver Creek HOA. The kicker? They CC'd me as resident, not even by name. Classy. Now that unauthorized structure they were talking about, it was a wooden fence I'd built myself nearly a decade ago. Solid post and rail, 5 feet high, treated pine, nothing fancy. Horses don't care about vinyl aesthetics, they care about durability, and so do I. But here's the thing, that fence wasn't anywhere near their jurisdiction. My land wasn't HOA, my fence wasn't HOA. I didn't even use their damn sidewalks. I figured it was a mistake, a sloppy attempt at overreach. So I called the number on the letter, got voicemail, and left a polite but firm message. No response. 2 days later, another envelope. This one had second notice stamped in bright red like I was being evicted from Earth. Fine. I went down to the next HOA meeting, not as a member, just as a very pissed off neighbor with paperwork. I brought a manila folder full of county records showing my property boundaries, zoning designation, and the 2011 letter confirming I was excluded from the HOA at the time of its formation. I didn't raise my voice, didn't even wear my boots. I just stood there in my flannel and jeans, showed them the documents, and asked plain as day, "Why am I getting violation notices for land your HOA doesn't own?" Sharon smiled, that awful tight-lipped grin you see on people who like power more than oxygen, and said, "We're just encouraging community standards, Mr. Bannon. Your fence is very visible from the road, and quite frankly, it creates an impression of disrepair. We'd like to help you bring your property in line with the neighborhood." I said, "You'd like to help me take down a fence on my land that keeps in $500,000 worth of horses because it offends your decorative sensibilities?" She blinked. Someone behind her laughed. I think it was the vice president, a guy with perfectly frosted hair who looked like he played golf 4 days a week and ruined every HOA barbecue with stories about college lacrosse. I offered them copies of my documents. Sharon refused to take them, just smiled again and said, "Well, I'm sure this can be worked out without unnecessary hostility." I nodded and walked out. I should have known that wasn't the end of it. 3 weeks went by without a word. No letters, no meetings, no fake smile notices taped to my mailbox like passive-aggressive ransom notes. Just silence. Honestly, I let myself believe it was over. That maybe they'd poked the bear, realized the bear had legal documents and a mean look, and decided to back off. But Sharon White wasn't the backing off type. It started with the drone. I first noticed it hovering over the training paddock during a sunrise session with a young gelding named Dusty. He was skittish, fresh off the trailer from Oklahoma, and not used to the open sky yet. The buzzing sound made him spook, not once, but 3 times in 15 minutes, nearly slammed into the fence trying to bolt. I looked up, saw the glint, and caught the tail end of the drone as it zipped off toward the HOA subdivision. The next morning, same thing. This time I was ready. I filmed it with my phone, followed the flight path, and traced it straight to Sharon's side yard, where, lo and behold, a little launch pad had been set up behind her hydrangeas. No subtlety, just bold, arrogant HOA surveillance vibes. I sent her an email. "Your drone is trespassing on private property and disrupting livestock. Keep it grounded or the next thing it films will be a cease and desist order." She didn't reply, but she did escalate. The very next week, a county code compliance officer showed up at my gate, clipboard in hand, nervous smile, looking like he just wanted to make it to lunch without a lawsuit. He said he was responding to an anonymous report that I had illegal structures on agricultural land, specifically an unpermitted shed and non-compliant drainage trench. I laughed, out loud. Then I offered him coffee, showed him the permits, and walked him through every line item. He was apologetic, said someone must be confused. I told him it wasn't confusion, it was harassment. He didn't disagree. That same afternoon, I found a bright pink violation sticker slapped across my front gate. It wasn't from the county, it was from the HOA. Failure to comply, visual degradation, Phase 1 enforcement initiated. Phase 1, like this was a war game, and then came the moment I'll never forgive her for. It was early evening, cool and golden, that time of day when the world softens. Daisy was out in her favorite corner of the pasture, the very one they'd marked for park development, just dozing in the grass like she owned the place. And then a landscaping crew showed up. Big white trucks with HOA logos. 3 guys with zero clue what they were walking into. They said they were here to start prepping the area for grading. I told them they had the wrong property. They pointed to a paper with a parcel number that matched mine, except 1 digit was off. Convenient mistake. I was chewing them out when a damn leaf blower kicked on behind me. One of them, trying to clear the perimeter, cranked it up and swung the nozzle toward the fence. Daisy bolted. Her hooves skidded on the gravel near the fence line, and she went down hard. rolled onto her side with a grunt I'll never forget. I ran to her. Her front leg was twisted under her body, trembling. She tried to get up and couldn't. The workers backed off, mumbling apologies. One of them offered to call someone. I told him if he didn't leave my property in the next 10 seconds, I'd make sure the sheriff personally taught him the difference between a boundary line and a lawsuit. They left. I stayed with Daisy for 2 hours while the vet came. X-rays showed no fracture, thank God, but she had a deep ligament strain. She'd be out of commission for months, maybe longer, and she was never going to move the same way again. That night, I sat on the tailgate of my truck watching the porch lights blink on across the subdivision. Perfect little rows of matching shutters and stone veneers. Somewhere behind those lights, Sharon White was probably sipping wine, flipping through Pinterest boards of modern park benches, and congratulating herself for beautifying the community. And I realized something. This wasn't about fences or noise complaints or visual standards. Sharon wanted my land, all of it. She'd already decided it was hers. She just hadn't figured out how to take it yet. But she made one mistake. She hurt my horse. And now I was done being polite. First thing Monday morning, I did what any rational man with a copy machine and a working spine would do. I lawyered up. Well, not quite yet. First, I paid a visit to the county recorder's office, where I spent 4 hours buried in zoning records that smelled like old coffee and despair. I printed out everything I could find on my property, original plats, easement records, and, most importantly, the document confirming I had opted out of the HOA when it was formed. Back then, the land was agricultural, and the HOA's borders were drawn around me like I had cooties. They didn't want livestock bringing down property values. Funny how a few years and a power-hungry new president can change all that. I brought the documents down to the Municipal Code Enforcement Office and explained the situation: the harassment, the phony notices, the drone, the fake parcel number used to send landscaping crews onto my land. The clerk, a guy named Troy with too many keychains and not enough enthusiasm, gave me the same line 3 times. "You'll need to resolve that with your HOA." I told him I wasn't in the HOA. He blinked at me like I'd said I wasn't subject to gravity. Well, they've submitted some documents recently that might say otherwise. That's when I knew something worse was coming, so I went to the source. Sharon White's home was exactly what you'd expect. Fake shutters, seasonal wreath, and a little chalkboard sign on the porch that said, "Bless this mess." I rang the doorbell. She opened the door wearing tennis whites and that same corporate smile face she wore at every HOA meeting. "Mr. Bannon," she said, like I was the one bothering her. "Can I help you?" I handed her a thick manila folder full of printed documents, property lines, exclusion notices, and pictures of Daisy's injury. "This is your last chance," I told her. "Back off my land, stay away from my animals, and call off whatever scheme you're cooking up over there." She didn't even look at the folder, just folded her arms and tilted her head like a guidance counselor delivering bad news. "Cole, I understand this is an emotional issue for you, but we're trying to improve the neighborhood for everyone. I'm sorry your animal got spooked, but that corner lot has been marked as a community interest space. It's already in the new district map we filed with the city." I said, "You mean the fake map? The one where you changed my parcel number by 1 digit and pretended it was yours?" She gave me the kind of smile people give when they've already decided you're too dumb to win. "We're not trying to fight with you, Cole. We just want cooperation. I'm sure if you spoke at the next meeting, we could..." I turned and walked away. I didn't say another word, because the truth was sinking in, slow and thick like syrup over gravel. Sharon wasn't just pushing boundaries, she was rewriting them. And the city? They were eating it up. Over the next 2 weeks, I filed 3 separate complaints. Zoning violation, citing HOA construction on my ag-zoned land. Animal endangerment, supported by vet documentation of Daisy's injury. Harassment and trespassing, with timestamps and drone footage. Each response was the same. This matter falls under the jurisdiction of the Silver Creek Homeowners Association. Even the sheriff's deputy I spoke with, a decent guy who knew the difference between horse fencing and white picket fantasyland, told me flat out, "We get calls like this all the time. If it's HOA related, it's civil, not criminal. You'll have to take it up with a judge." Civil, not criminal, as if trespassing with a drone and sending crews onto private property with a falsified map was just a neighborly misunderstanding. I was polite, I was thorough. I had more paperwork than the IRS, and none of it mattered, because Sharon had friends in city planning. She had influence. She had a board of HOA sycophants who'd rubber stamp anything she waved under their noses as long as it came with wine and a sugar cookie afterward. Me, I had land, I had horses, I had peace. And now I had none of the above. That was when I knew peaceful wasn't going to cut it. They'd stolen too much, my boundaries, my time, my safety. Hell, they nearly stole my damn horse. It was time to dig deeper, and what I found next, it changed everything. It started with a map, not mine. See, after getting stonewalled by every city office in a 50-mile radius, I started poking where I wasn't supposed to. I wasn't looking for trouble, just answers. And I got one, from the most unexpected place imaginable, a nosy teenager. Kid's name was Ethan, 14. Lived 2 houses down from Sharon and spent most of his free time flying his own drone, badly, around the neighborhood. I only knew him because he once crashed the thing into my rain barrel and then tried to play it cool like he was doing a stress test. Anyway, I found him at the local feed store, eyeing the horse treats like he had plans that didn't involve a saddle. We got to talking, and when I mentioned the HOA park plan, his eyes lit up. Oh yeah, Mrs. White had these blueprints at her place. My dad's on the board. She was showing them off during the cookout last month, said it was going to be a legacy project. Legacy, of course. I asked if he remembered what the plans looked like. He grinned, pulled out his phone, and, God bless teenagers, flipped to a photo he wasn't even supposed to take. Sharon had been posing with 2 HOA board members in front of a giant foam core rendering of the Silver Creek Heritage Park. Right in the center of it? My pasture, my barn, my entire ranch marked with fake walking trails, picnic tables, and something labeled community stable for decorative purposes only. Decorative! They were planning to demolish my working ranch and rebuild it as some kind of plastic frontier, Disneyland where the horses never poop and the fences are all white and symmetrical. I zoomed in. That's when I saw it. In the bottom right corner of the rendering, Silver Creek Civic Development Fund, in partnership with Redwood Horizons. Redwood Horizons. Now that name I knew. They were a real estate development firm based out of Orange County. Big money, big ambition, and they'd been sniffing around our area for years, trying to buy up land for eco-friendly luxury amenities. I once got a letter from them offering to purchase my property outright. Cash offer, above market value. I tossed it in the fireplace, but suddenly it made sense. The phony parcel map, the sudden push for community beautification, the camera poles, the fake violations, the drone harassment. It wasn't about standards. It was a land grab. And Sharon White? She wasn't just some suburban tyrant with a whiteboard and a superiority complex. She was a developer plant. I did some digging, deep. Public records, press releases, campaign donation logs. It took me 4 nights and about a gallon of coffee, but I found it. Sharon had worked as a legal consultant for Redwood Horizons until 2 years ago. She left with a non-disclosure retirement package and relocated to Silver Creek 3 months before getting herself elected HOA president. And about 6 months later, boom, Heritage Park Initiative. Born, complete with pre-approved renderings and a drafted acquisition plan for underutilized green lots. Only problem? I wasn't on the market. Never had been, never would be. But she didn't need me to sell, not if she could twist the rules, muddy the lines, fake the paperwork, and call it community expansion. That wasn't negligence, that was fraud. And suddenly, this wasn't just about saving Daisy or preserving some romantic idea of a fence line. This was about taking down a crook who came into my town wearing tennis shoes and a fake smile, and tried to steal my life with a clipboard. And now? Now I had her name, her motive, and her connection to a corporation with deep enough pockets to make a judge blink. But she forgot one thing. I may not have her resources, but I had something she didn't. Time, stubbornness, and about 400 pages of proof that she screwed with the wrong cowboy. Now that I had Sharon's dirty secret in my hands, I didn't get mad. I got organized. Revenge isn't about shouting the truth from a rooftop. It's about whispering it into the right ears and letting the avalanche handle the rest. First step, I needed backup, the kind that didn't spook at HOA letterhead. I called in a favor from a guy named Rick Pennington, a land use attorney I met at a zoning fight years ago when the county tried to reclassify one of my hay sheds as a permanent structure. He got it tossed in 10 minutes and then asked me for writing lessons. Good guy, smarter than most. I sent him everything. The fake parcel maps, the altered filings, the Redwood Horizons tie-in, the drone footage, vet report. The photo Ethan snapped of the Heritage Park foam board with my barn drawn like a damn prop for tourists. Rick's response? Oh man, this isn't civil anymore. This is fraud, coercion, zoning manipulation, and misuse of municipal authority. I could build a whole seminar off this. Which brings me to phase 1 of the plan, lawful disruption. Rick filed 3 separate motions with 3 different agencies. A cease and desist order through the County Land Commission, citing zoning abuse and development fraud. A petition for injunctive relief to freeze any pending construction or HOA initiatives tied to my parcel. A formal ethics complaint to the City Council about Sharon's undeclared financial ties to a private developer operating in the district. But legal battles are slow, and Sharon had momentum. She still had power. For now. That's where Phase 2 came in, public pressure. I called up a woman named Linda Mays, local reporter, investigative journalist, and longtime fan of my apple cider. She owed me one for letting her film a segment on sustainable ranching last fall. When I told her what I had, she drove over that same day with 2 cameras and a recorder. I gave her everything: documents, maps, records, even the city's own approvals based on fraudulent data. And then I walked her down to the field where Daisy still limped when she crossed the fence line. She filmed it all. That night, I sat on my porch and watched the sun go down with a whiskey in hand and the local news queued up on my laptop. The story ran at 6 p.m. sharp. HOA president linked to fraudulent development scheme. Local rancher says she tried to steal his land. There was a slow pan of my property, a dramatic shot of the foam core Heritage Park mock-up, a freeze frame on Sharon in a tennis outfit saying it's for the community. Twitter lit up, so did Nextdoor. And about 15 minutes after the broadcast, I got a text from one of the quieter HOA board members. "We didn't know. Swear to God. Please don't burn the whole place down." Phase 3 was internal. Using the bylaws Sharon was so obsessed with weaponizing, I filed a petition of no confidence with the HOA. That required 10% of member signatures to initiate a vote for emergency removal. I walked door to door, quietly, respectfully. Turns out, when you explain to people that their HOA dues are being funneled into a secret land seizure project designed to raise property values for a private developer, even the most lawn-obsessed dads turn into pitchfork activists. Took me 2 days to collect 37 signatures. The minimum was 18. By the time the HOA board got my petition, it was already printed in the community newsletter, a double-page spread titled, "Whose Land Is It Anyway? How Our HOA Almost Stole a Ranch." But I wasn't done. Phase 4? Pure cowboy. I took a dozen wooden stakes and marked the actual boundary of my property, the real one, straight from the county records, and hammered signs into the ground. Private property, outside HOA jurisdiction. Trespassers will be photographed, prosecuted, and shamed. The next morning, the drone came back. It hovered, buzzed. I walked out, tipped my hat, and held up a piece of cardboard that said, "Hello Redwood, your girl got caught." It zipped away like a mosquito that knew it bit the wrong arm. I wasn't just fighting back now, I was winning. And Sharon? She didn't even know the next meeting would be her last. The HOA meeting was scheduled for Thursday at 7 p.m. in the Silver Creek Clubhouse, the one with the granite countertops and uncomfortable folding chairs they called community design. I got there early, not to make a scene, just to pick my spot, like a man who shows up to church early because he knows he's got something to confess, and a few things to forgive himself for. By 7:10, the place was packed, more bodies than chairs. People standing against the walls, arms crossed, HOA newsletters in hand like they were holding evidence, which, thanks to me and Linda Mays, they were. Sharon walked in 5 minutes late, which was fitting. She wore her usual tennis outfit and a cardigan that screamed, "I still think I'm winning." What she didn't know? Rick, my attorney, was sitting 2 rows back, and so was the reporter. Sharon opened with her usual greeting. "Welcome, neighbors. Thank you for coming out to help shape the future of our beautiful community." That was the last sentence she finished uninterrupted. One by one, people raised their hands. Then they stopped bothering. They stood up. Why didn't you disclose your connection to Redwood Horizons? Why were you planning to build a park on land you don't own? Why is my HOA fee being spent on legal bills I never voted on? It wasn't a mutiny, it was a structured revolt, like a courtroom with folding chairs and lemonade. And me, I just sat there and watched. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up slow, walked to the front, and placed a stack of documents on the table in front of Sharon. It made a heavy thud, the good kind. "These," I said, "are certified records from the county recorder, the zoning office, and the state development board. They prove that your president," I paused and nodded toward her, "filed false development maps, illegally included non-HOA land in HOA filings, and failed to disclose a financial connection to a private developer trying to purchase my ranch by force." Dead silence. Even the air conditioning unit stopped humming. I swear it listened. This wasn't about a fence, or a color palette, or horses. This was a corporate land grab dressed up as community improvement, and y'all were the cover story. I handed out printed copies of everything, had a folder for each board member. Hell, I even printed one for the HOA treasurer's kid, who was sitting in the back watching TikToks until I said the word lawsuit. That's when I dropped the final hammer. And since Sharon's actions meet the legal definition of fraud, coercion, and abuse of public trust, I've filed formal charges with the county attorney. I suggest the board votes to suspend her immediately, pending investigation. Rick stood up behind me, and for the record, he said, adjusting his glasses like it was a courtroom drama finale, we're also filing a class action civil suit on behalf of all HOA members whose dues were used without proper disclosure. Sharon turned pale, paler than I thought someone with that much spray tan could get. She tried to speak, got halfway through the word misunderstanding before one of the board members, the lacrosse dad, cut her off. Save it, you're done here. The vote took 15 minutes, unanimous. Sharon was removed from office pending legal investigation, her authority revoked, her initiative frozen, and every single one of her park development efforts, including the surveillance poles, fake signs, and construction orders, rescinded immediately by emergency vote. Then came the part I didn't expect. The board turned to me and asked if I'd like to rejoin the HOA as a respected advisor. I said no, but I offered them a deal. If you want to fix this community, start by putting your energy into the folks who live here, not into changing the map, and keep your HOA off my pasture. They agreed, and I walked out before the applause started because I'm not the clapping type. I'm the get it done and get back to the barn type. And speaking of which, when I got home, Daisy was standing by the fence. Same spot, same lazy lean. This time, no cameras were watching, just the stars. I didn't have to ruin Sharon White. She did that all by herself. All I did was hand people the receipts. The morning after the HOA vote, Linda Mays dropped her follow-up story. This one wasn't a quiet expose buried on page 3. It was a front page, above the fold, 2-column spread in the Sunday Tribune. Horses, hustles, and HOA hell, how a rancher exposed the developer inside your neighborhood. They ran a photo of me and Daisy standing at the fence line. She was leaning her head over my shoulder like she knew the camera was rolling. The headline font was bold red. The subhead? Sharper than any barbed wire. Sharon White's secret ties to Redwood Horizons, spark community backlash, criminal probe. The piece detailed everything. The doctored parcel maps. The shell company used to process HOA construction invoices. The drone surveillance. The fraudulent community park mock-up. Designed to raise area property values before a quiet corporate acquisition. But the real nail in the coffin? Linda included an email Sharon had accidentally forwarded to a board member, and that board member, now very much on Team Sanity, had passed it to us. The subject line? Let's soften the old man up, play the community card first. She was talking about me. That line got quoted everywhere, in the comments under the article. On Facebook mom groups, on Reddit threads titled HOA Tyrant Gets Dismounted by Cowboy Justice. The local news station picked it up again, ran a follow-up titled Rancher's Quiet Battle Turns into HOA Showdown of the Year. They even did a dramatic reenactment using stock footage of horses and slow zooms on legal documents. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped my coffee. And the fallout? Oh, it was beautiful. Redwood Horizons released a statement by Monday morning claiming they had no knowledge of any fraudulent actions conducted by independent consultants. Translation: we just got caught red-handed and are now sprinting for the hills. Within 48 hours, they pulled out of 3 other developments in the county, probably to avoid any more cowboys with cameras and receipts. Sharon? She resigned officially, citing health reasons. Packed up her home in record time and left Silver Creek under the cover of night like a raccoon caught in a trash can. No goodbye, no farewell brunch, no farewell community walkthrough like she used to host every third Sunday with mimosas and condescension. A neighbor told me she tried to sell her house at market rate. Didn't work. Nobody wants to buy the ex-HOA president's place when the Zillow listing comments say things like, nice countertops, shame about the attempted land fraud. And me? I didn't say much, didn't post, didn't gloat. I just kept to myself. Watched it unfold like a slow-motion rodeo wipeout, fascinating, inevitable, and oddly satisfying. But I'll admit, when I saw someone at the coffee shop reading the Tribune article and muttering, "Good for that horse guy," I smiled into my cup. Daisy's injury healed better than expected. She limps in the cold now, but she's back to bossing the pasture like she always did. The spot they marked for community stables now has a fresh layer of hay and a hand-carved sign I made out of one of Sharon's surveillance poles. It reads, "Private Land, EST 2011. Trespassers will be fed to the mayor." It gets a lot of laughs during riding lessons. It's been 6 months since the last urgent HOA notice showed up at my gate. The fence is still standing. So is Daisy. So am I. Most mornings now, I get up before sunrise, make my coffee strong enough to strip paint, and walk the fence line with the dogs trailing behind. The air's cooler this time of year, and you can feel the silence settle in. Not the tense kind, but the earned kind. The kind that says you held your ground and the storm passed. They never rebuilt the surveillance poles. The park project died a quiet death. And the HOA? They're still there, still making decisions about mailbox heights and acceptable flowerbed depths. But now, there's a little more humility in their meetings, and a lot fewer tennis outfits. They offered to name the open field across from my property Bannon Meadows as a goodwill gesture. I declined, told them I didn't need my name on a park. I already had it carved into the land. Instead, I asked for something simpler, a change to the bylaws, a clause that makes it explicitly clear that non-HOA parcels are not subject to HOA review, regulation, or development, ever. They voted it in unanimously. Funny how fast people can learn when embarrassment is on the evening news. Every now and then, new folks move into the neighborhood. They drive by slow, give a wave, take in the view of the barn, the horses, the crooked fence posts I still haven't replaced, because they've got more personality than half the new builds going up these days. Some of them ask if I board horses. I say no. Some ask if I give riding lessons. I say yes, if you're willing to get dirty and do half the work. But nobody asks about joining the HOA, and I think that's the part I like most. No more lectures about aesthetic cohesion. No more lawn committee flyers. No more passive-aggressive emails about the visual impact of large animals. Just land, just sky, just work that matters. Last week, I cut a new riding trail along the eastern edge of the property, the one they tried to claim for their picnic benches. Took me all day. At the top of the slope, I stopped to catch my breath, and Daisy wandered up beside me, nudged my elbow like she still remembered everything. We stood there for a while, looking out over that stretch of dirt they thought was up for grabs. I gave her a pat and said, "We kept it, girl." She flicked her tail, snorted like she wasn't impressed. And honestly, that was the best part of all.